So how's this for a location change? I am in New York City, uh, doing some things, and in order to not get too behind on, getting caught up, I thought I would go through part of what I read in May. I'm going to go through 6 of them. I've got an informational text, I've got a middle grades novel, and then I've got 4 literary titles that I really, really enjoyed. So get ready to deal with me in this teeny tiny space because I'm in New York and I'm cheap. And this is what you get when you're in New York and you're cheap. So, okay, let's get rolling. Hold on. Let me make sure I'm not actually lying here. Let's make sure, shall we? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I was not lying. Delightful. Okay. Does this look a little weird? This feels a little weird. I read some books in May, and I'm trying to get back on an actual schedule. So let's get to it, shall we? Over the course of May, I read 9 books. I want to talk about 6 of them. The other 3 also super enjoyable, but I've got other plans for those. So just hold on to them. But I thought since it is a little late and I have to get on a bus tomorrow to head upstate, that we would spend some time this evening just having a chat about these books. Let's start with the informational text first. I read Careless People by Sarah Wynne Williams this month, and this has been an interesting book because I've seen it everywhere, but I haven't heard anyone talk about it. Sarah worked for Facebook back in the golden age of Facebook, if there was a golden age of Facebook. And she talks about how she essentially convinced Facebook to create a job for her. She really thought about Facebook as this technological tool that would allow her to do some of the diplomacy work that she was really interested in. She was trained as a lawyer in Australia, and she was really interested in kind of the international piece of it. What's really fascinating about this book is she talks really brilliantly about how Facebook came to be and kind of the timeline, which we know everything that happens in this book. We know kind of the timeline because we've lived it. However, just like Maggie Haberman's book on Trump, one of the values that I found in this book was the way that not only she accounts for some of the background stuff that I wasn't privy to in Facebook, particularly as Facebook went from being a social media platform to being something entirely different. I really appreciated how it placed all of that into a timeline, into something cohesive that I could understand, that was linear to an extent, and I could follow. The author is not allowed to do publicity around this book, and it is kind of terrifying. No, it is terrifying. It's not kind of terrifying. It is terrifying that Facebook is continuing to be allowed to go unchecked in some really crazy ways. It made me think a lot of, as I was doing the research for the attention video and reading the Ipsos video, there were lots of connections between how Facebook came about and the ways in which our attention has been hijacked. Fascinating book. One of the critiques that I've read about it is it's really set up as a memoir. Again, you get this nice timeline, and it seems like people really want Sarah to take some more responsibility for, like, you were part and parcel of this as Facebook came to be this global domineering piece of social media. And I feel like she did that in the book. She's not like, oh, I was faultless here. I made things happen. Part of why Facebook is where it is right now is because of stuff I did, and I'm not happy about it. That's interesting. That, to me. I don't know what amends people would want, but it was a book that was absolutely horrifying and frustrating. I'm ultimately so glad that I read it because I had not put all of the Facebook stuff into a linear format. So Careless People, totally a worthwhile read. Ugh, Facebook is just so gross. It used to be so much fun. The internet used to be so much fun. When did all of these things stop being fun? And then I think about, like, young people. How are they having fun? Do they think this is fun? I have questions. Okay. Speaking of young people, let's move in to the Swifts, A Dictionary of Scoundrels. This is the middle grades book that I read this month. This book follows Shenanigans Swift, who is in the Swift family, and everyone in the Swift family has a very particular name, and they have to live up to their name. So Shenanigan is trying to figure out, what does that mean for me? Am I always up to shenanigans? What is going on? The book takes place over a family reunion, and let's just say someone ends up dead. And Shenanigan finds herself having to solve this mystery, which was really enjoyable. There is a level of wordplay in this book. I mean, there has to be. It's called The Dictionary of Scoundrels, right? But the level of wordplay, the level of words that this book wants to get into young readers' lexicons made it super enjoyable to read, delightful to read, and it keeps you guessing. In terms of being a middle grades mystery, even for myself, there were a couple of red herrings I didn't pick up on. I really enjoyed that. Beth Lincoln did a really nice job pulling this together. It's kind of like, it gave me series of unfortunate events vibes without the unsatisfying ending meets Knives Out, if that makes sense. I think other people have said that. I don't think that's an original thought. That might actually be on the cover. Anyway, totally enjoyed it. Very much worthwhile. A bit fluffier than some of the other books that I have been reading for middle grades, but sometimes you gotta take a break from the heavy stuff. Not everything can be Wolf Hollow. Thank goodness. Oof, because that book, still thinking about that book. Okay. Let's move into some literary fiction, shall we? My love affair with Stephen Graham Jones is well documented here. I really enjoyed the Prufrock trilogy, My Heart is a Chainsaw, Angel of Indian Lake. Why am I having trouble with titles? I'm having trouble with titles because it's 10 p.m. and I walked like 13 miles today and then went for a run because I'm an idiot. But anyway, so I read I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones, who I love so much that I just can't have to keep repeating it. This book was fascinating on so many levels. One, it takes place in 1989. So it has that late 80s, early 90s vibes going with it. And I was not a teenager then, but I was developed enough that I was like, oh yeah, this feels real. And it takes place in Texas, and it feels really personal. It feels like this is Jones working through some stuff. with his own growing up. But it follows Tolly and his friend Amber, who go to a party one night. Tolly gets super drunk and he finds himself in a situation that isn't great. That places him in the middle of a different situation when a boy who had died in an accident comes back to life and starts murdering the people who were involved in the accident that he was killed in. And then, because of that, Tolly becomes a slasher, the teenage slasher of said title. Jones plays so well with structure and has this meta awareness of horror and the horror tropes. And that really comes to play here. I will say this did not feel as tight as some of his other work. I wonder if this was an earlier work that he repurposed for release later. I had seen some things coming with this book that I normally don't in a Stephen Graham Jones book, and that could be because I'm a daft reader. Could be because I'm just so in love with him as an author that I'm just oblivious. But I did find myself going, yeah, saw that coming. I wasn't bored, particularly as the book lays out, the slasher rules and kind of reinvents them as Tolly experiences that. I also really enjoyed how being a slasher became this kind of superpower in the book. It was a fun read. Not my favorite by him, but I enjoyed it. Let's talk about The Life Cycle of the Common Octopus by Emma Knight, which this was tasty literary candy. So tasty, so delicious. I really enjoyed this book. It was a book I listened to on my road trip to Michigan. It follows Penn, a young woman who has left Toronto, her home, for the University of Edinburgh. She is trying to figure out what happened between her parents, who are divorced, and her father's old best friend, who happens to be this really famous mystery writer who lives in Edinburgh and met her dad when they were both at the University of Edinburgh. It's this interesting premise where you have to suspend some disbelief, but this is also a book that features many rich people problems. She has the resources. She is an over-resourced character. We meet characters with more resources than her later in the book, but they're not quite as annoying as you might think they would be. That's the whole premise. She makes contact with this family. The family takes her in, and lo and behold, all of these things start happening. It's really an interesting coming of age tale. I loved the Edinburgh part of it. That just felt really delightful to me. I've never been there. At some point, I would love to do an Edinburgh Christmas. Would be fun. I loved the coming of age tale of Penn at university, meeting friends, falling in love, trying to figure out what she wants to do, making sense of her parents, the whole arc of her coming to terms with who her parents are and what her parents have done. It's one of those few books that makes me want to go back and relive my college years, but not really. Not really. I want to go back and relive my college years with Penn's resources. But tasty literary candy. Num 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 num. Barely any calories. Delicious. Let's also talk about Marcus Klewers. I'm not saying his last name appropriately. We used to live here. This is an Emily, Matchmaker Emily, told me I needed to read this. And so I did, and I really enjoyed it. It feels a little, if you remember September House, I think I talked about that back in October. And September House was when the real estate market's like this, you buy a haunted house because you can afford it. Well, in this particular book, Eve and, I'm trying to remember names, Charlie are two flippers. They buy houses, they flip them, and that's how they make their money. They buy this old house. I want to say it was in Oregon. Is that right? I think it was in Oregon. But anyway, one night, Charlie is gone, Eve is alone, and a man shows up with his wife and two children and says, "Oh, I used to live here. Can we take a look around?" So they're taking a look around, and their young daughter suddenly disappears. Apparently, she likes to play hide and seek a lot. She's stuck with these kind of strangers in her house, and Charlie comes back. They stay the night. There's a snowstorm, et cetera, et cetera. Because one of the things about this house is there's only one bridge to get to it. It's kind of on this islandy thing, and they get snowed in. Perfect. They're stuck with these folks, and weird stuff starts happening. It's a little Stranger Things. It was enjoyable without understanding everything that's happening here. And I believe there's a lot of discussion on this book online. So if that does strike you as something fun and enjoyable, that's there. I have not reached that. It kept me guessing. I kind of had some stuff figured out, but other stuff threw me for a bit of a loop. So if you're into that psychological, what is going on here kind of book, this might be a good one. And then last but not least is a book I have been slogging through. Slogging, and not for lack of interest. It is Troubles, and it's by J.G. Farrell. It's the first book in his Imperialist trilogy. I will not be picking up the other two books. However, I am really glad to have read this first one. Now that I've stepped away from it, I'm really happy that I read it. The basic premise of this book is it takes place after World War I, and a British major goes to Ireland to meet his fiancée. She and her father own this crumbling hotel on the Irish coast called the Majestic. It is literally crumbling. Mortar is missing, stone is falling off. There are, in the garden room, palm trees that have literally uprooted the floor tiles. Things are not good at the Majestic. And then the fiancé goes away. And that's fine, because the major has got eyes for this other rather unlikable character, Sarah. He only has eyes for her. And thus begins one of the things that I understand now that I didn't understand before, is that this is a book about symbolism. It's a book about Britain's imperialism and how the empire began falling apart. In the back of all of this is Ireland wanting its independence. Everything that's going on at the Majestic itself even, is this big symbolic play on what is happening in the world at that time. I didn't understand that. I didn't really draw all of the connections until I finished the book. It's kind of a book where nothing happens, but a lot happens. And it gets a little hairy at the end, but is a really fascinating literary insight into a period of history that I don't read very often. I'm glad that I read it. I won't be reading other books in that trilogy, but this particular book won the 1970 Booker Lost Prize, I think. Those are some standouts from my May. It feels like I just did March and April, because I did. We're getting into a rhythm, folks. Getting into a rhythm. Trying. I know there's lots of piles of possibilities that I've got queued up. I'm excited to watch them, but would love to know about what kind of books are you looking forward to in June. It is June 5th as I am filming this. Summer, man, feels just like it's fleeting. That could be partially because I am a middle-aged man sitting on the bottom bunk of a set of bunk beds. Not my favorite setup. I think they thought that this was an upgrade. It is not an upgrade. There's only one of me. I don't need this. I don't need this ceiling. I like to be able to open a window. But I'm in New York City, so I can't complain. I spend very little time here, except when I'm filming a video. So anyway, I hope that your June reading is off to a good start. And I'm going to see how quickly I can get this edited and posted, because we're trying not to fall behind-ish. Whatever that means. Welcome to the first cozy, really cozy, what I read from bed. There may not be any more of these. I don't know that there's going to be more of these. But as always, I appreciate you. I'll see you in the next one.